the Item Detailed Wizard. This is a new feature in Edge 21.1. Before we get into how to use it, I want to explain what item details are. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add an item. When you first go to the add screen, before you put in your category, all the generic fields that are available for every item show up. When you choose a category, it will fill in specific details for that category. These are item details. Each detail grouping has up to 8 fields that can be added. So there's a total of 16 item details that can be collected on each individual category. Based on the category, those are going to be different. So if I go to a pendant category, those details now change and I have more details that show up. To make changes to item details, you would do that under the category. So if I go into inventory and I go to categories and I go to list, if I choose a category and I go to details, the detail tab will show me what currently is on the details for that category. So in this particular category, which is diamond wedding bands, I have style, metal, color, finish, and ring size. In the past, you could do pretty much anything you wanted here, and there wasn't a lot of direction. We've changed that, where you can now edit an existing field or create a new one. If you wanted to remove a detail field, that would be under the edit also. We're going to go ahead and create details, and then we'll go through and edit. So under create, you will need permission to add or edit item details. So this is a new permission. Detail name. What is the name that we want to show up on the item record when people are putting this item in? So for this diamond wedding band, let's say that I carry some branded lines and there are collections that these different bands belong to. So I'm going to create a new field called collection. I am creating a new one. I do have the option to click copy from, choose a different category, and then I could choose a field from a different category. We are going to create a new one. So the first thing it wants to know is what type of field is this? Is this a number field, a dollar field, a text field, or a list field? Number, dollar, and text are fields that allow the associate or whoever's putting the item in to type whatever they need to. Number and dollar will be narrowed to strictly numbers. Text will allow any characters to be entered. In this scenario where it's collection, I'm going to say I have a specific list of collections that I want them to choose from. So I'm going to choose list. When you're using a list, you can create a new list for this particular field, or you could choose to use an existing list that is already in the system. Once you choose a list, you'll be able to modify it towards this particular detail field. We're going to create a new list on this one. Is this field required? If this box is checked, they will not be able to enter an item in this category without filling in this field. Also, any item that already exists, if you try to open it and save it, it will require you to fill this information in. When you're choosing list, you will also get another option, which is must match list. This means they have to choose from the list. They cannot type in their own information. If I uncheck this, when we try to finish, it's going to tell me that this means the associate will be able to either select a list value or type into this field. If I want it to happen, I could say yes, but I'm going to say no to go back and hit must match list. So only the values that I put into the list can be selected for this detail field. Storage field. Where do you want this data to be stored? By default, it's always going to start off with a custom detail. Custom details is a spot in the database that will hold this information, but it's not searchable. There are only certain fields that are searchable. If I hit that drop down, I will get all of the searchable fields that are available to this category. None of these match what I'm putting in, so I'm going to leave it at custom detail. What you'll notice is that the fields that were already selected for storage, style, metal type, metal color, are not here. You cannot select a storage field that's already being used. When we hit next, because I chose list and create a new list, it is going to make me fill in my details here for the list. So I'm going to hit add. You have a tag value and a description value. So if you choose to print the collection on the tag, whatever's under this short value will show up on the tag. Long value is what shows up in the description. So if this collection was called Moonlight, my long description could be Moonlight, my short could be Moon, and that would be what prints on the tag. If another one that I had was Sunset, I could type Sunset as the short value, and the actual long value would be Sunset Glow. So in the description it would say Sunset Glow, but on the tag it would say Sunset. You can add as many values as you need to. If you want them to be in a certain order, you can use the move up and move down, or as you add them, you can add them in the order that you want. Once I have the options that I want, I would hit next, and I'd hit save. When I finish, there's now a new detail field for category 110 called collection. So what that means is the next time I go in and I want to add an item, and I choose category 110, I will now have a new detail field called collection that will have 2 selections. So that's how we add a new detail type that is a list to the category detail tab. When we're in the item detail wizard, if we want to add a new list field, but we want to use an existing list, we can go to create, choose our detail name. We're just going to call it list detail. We are creating a new one. We're still not copying from. We're going to go to list, but the difference in creating one using existing list is we're going to choose existing list. Required, must match list. Required will make them put it in every time. Must match list will only let them choose from the list. There is no storage field that fits my particular new field, so I'm going to leave it in custom. When I get to the next screen now, instead of creating new entries automatically, it gives me a list of all the existing lists that are already in the system. So if I wanted to choose precious metals, so this list is going to list certain metals, but there's only 3 metals that can go in this new field. So I don't want all these to show. I can modify the list for all categories, which means when I make those changes, anywhere that precious metals is currently used, it will change them. But because I want this new list field to only have 3 fields or 3 entries, I'm going to say modify this list for this category. By default, it names it whatever I called the field, which was list detail, with category 110 at the end. I could still make adjustment to that name. So maybe this is actually prong metal. So now I can hit next. It will show me all the current options for precious metals. Now the only possibilities here for this particular dropdown are going to be 14, 18, and platinum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all other entries. Now again, if I had said update this for all, anytime I went into a regular item that used precious metals, I'd only have these 3 options now. But because I changed it to prong metal, it's only going to affect this one category in this one list. So when I hit next and save and hit finish, I now have a new option, which is prong metal. So now if I was to go in and add an item to category 110, I have a list detail that only has 3 options. Yet when I go to metal, It still has all the options that were on the original precious metals list. So that's how you can add a new list detail using an existing list that's already in the system. Using the item detail wizard, we can also add a new field that's not a list. So we're going to do that now. So we're going to say that this particular field is called serial number because some of my wedding bands have serial numbers on them. We're going to create a new field, and this is going to be a text field because my serial numbers are not just numbers. They can have letters, dashes, so I want that to be text. Text will allow all of that. Not every one of my diamond wedding bands has a serial number, so I'm not going to mark it as required. If I did, every item would have to have that. There is no must match list because this is not a list. And now it's asking where should I store it. Under storage field, I could go to custom detail, but there is actually a serial number field that is searchable through item find. And I want this to be able to be found through serial number. So I'm going to choose serial number. With text, dollar, and number, this is your last screen. Basically, it's going to show you your information. You're going to hit save and finish, and now it's done. There's no lists that need to be attached, nothing that needs to be changed. So now that I have that new field, the next time I go to add an item into category 110, there is now a serial number field that will let me type whatever I want to put in there. So text fields, number fields, dollar fields work the same. You can type what you need and then it'll go in. If I wanted to edit a detail field using the item detail wizard, I would click on the field that I want to edit. So if I wanted to make ring size required, if I go into the edit, it shows me what the current detail is, and it asks me if I want to edit or delete. So if I wanted to remove it, I could just hit delete, finish out, and I'll no longer have ring size on it. But I want to edit. I'm going to hit next. You can edit the type of field. You can edit whether it's required. You can also edit the storage field. If you edit the storage field, when you finish, it will move the data that's existing in this category in the field to the new field. So if I had a serial number set up and I had been putting serial numbers in it, but it wasn't saved in the serial number field, I can then move it to serial number and all that data would go from the custom detail to serial number and now would be searchable. I do not want to change where it's stored. What I do want to change is that it's required. So if I choose required and I hit next and I hit save and finish, I now have ring size still there, but it is required. So anytime an item gets put into category 110, it will require it. Anytime you edit an existing item that doesn't have a ring size, when you try to hit save, it will make you fill in the ring size. If you've updated an existing category and you want to copy details to a new category. So if I bring up a category and I go to the item details and I want a serial number here. Well, I've created serial number on a different category. So if I go into create and I say copy from another detail, I can choose any category where I have serial number set up and choose serial number. I also want to call it serial number here. And now I would hit next. Serial number is text and it's going to be stored in serial number. I'd hit next, save, and finish. So now I have a serial number on this category without having to go through all of the steps of creating it. It copied the same information from a previous category and moved it over here. The other way of moving details from one category to another is the new button, Copy To. Copy To is kind of like Copy From, except Copy From only lets you do one-to-one. Copy To, if I have a category set up the way that I want it, and I want this to go to multiple, I could do Copy To. Copy To will allow me to select multiple categories that I want to move these details to. So if I choose a bunch and say OK, it will now ask me what from this category do I want to move to the other. Markup markdown would be the pricing. Tags would be the tag layout. Taxes would be the taxes tab. I could choose all or individual detail fields to move. And if I've set up templates for descriptions, I can move them also. So you'd select what you want, you'd hit copy, and that would copy these details to the new categories that I've chosen.